All controversies trailing the 2016 budget document have been laid to rest as the Nigerian Senate unanimously accepted and adopted the request for amendment of some section of the budget as sent by President Muhammadu Buhari. The resolution followed a motion moved by Senate Leader Ali Ndume on the letter earlier read on the floor of the Senate by Senate President Bukola Saraki.
2016 budget proposals. It will be recalled that on Tuesday, 22nd December 2015, I presented my 2016 budget proposals to the joint sitting of the National Assembly. I submitted a draft bill accompanied by a schedule of details. At the time of submission, we indicated that because the details had just been produced and will have had to check to ensure that there were no errors in the detailed breakdown contained in the schedule. That has since been completed, and I understand that the corrections have been submitted. The National Assembly will therefore have the details as submitted on the 22nd and a copy containing the corrections submitted last week. It appears that this has led to some confusion. In this regard, please find attached the corrected version. This is the version the National Assembly should work with as my 2016 budget estimates. The draft bill remains the same, and there are no changes in any of the figures. Please accept, Mr. Senate President, the assurances of my highest regards. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari.
After adopting the amendment to the 2016 budget as requested by the presidency, Saraki thanked the senator for the unanimous decision and patriotism. In another development, the Senate has held a closed-door section with the governor of Central Bank, Godwin Emefiele, on the continued depreciation of Nigerian currency against dollar. Senate spokesman Aliu Shabi, while briefing journalists after the session, said the country economy is on track.
In view of the above, the CBN governor presented a detailed, comprehensive and lucid account of the performance of the Nigerian economy in the last 1 year. He touched on the global economic conditions in which he informed us that, of course, we are not immune from the external shocks that is currently going on in the world. These shocks included the following: declining commodity prices, the geopolitical tensions along important global trading routes, and tightening of monetary policy in the United States of America. He drew linkages of these occurrences within the Nigerian economy, especially with respect to the over 70% decline in oil prices from about $116 per barrel in June 2014 to about less than $30 today.
Meanwhile, the Senate will commence the debate on the general principle of the budget tomorrow. From National Assembly Complex, Muyiwa Bamdele reporting. The Nigerian Senate has said that it will complete works on 2060 budget by the end of next month. Senate Leader Ali Ndume made this known in an interactive section with journalists in Abuja, saying that the Senate will speed up all the budget processes to meet up with the deadline. However, the Senate leader insisted that budget document was not missing, but there were issues surrounding the budget which made the Senate to subject the budget document to integrity checks.
That was laid before the Joint Assembly by Mr. President comes in copies, and the one, as you know, as a correspondent in the National Assembly that was submitted by Mr. President cannot, I say it again, cannot be missing. There were issues that came after surrounding the budget process, which people disagreed as to how or whether it was done properly. And that now led to the issue of saying, okay, this budget, when the president presented it, it's a summary, the bill is a summary of the detail of the budget, isn't it? And now, when the president presented the bill, the details went through integrity, what we normally call integrity checks. And then therefore it come out with, of course, naturally some differences between the one that was first submitted and the one that was produced at the end of the integrity check.
He also described the People's Democratic Party call for the impeachment of President Muhammadu Buhari over the budget controversy as the biggest joke of the year.
You know, the PDP call for the president's impeachment is a big joke, but we need it for the year. It's one of the jokes of the year. So what would we have done with PDP for what they did to these 16 years? It's not impeachment. Would we have called for us to kill the PDP safe? Because they kill Nigeria virtually. Isn't it? So it's a joke, just because there is controversy as to whether a budget is missing or what is this. You say, oh, impeach the president. I believe the call on the president for impeachment is because that is the thing that you can call on it. I'm not saying this because I'm one of the. I don't think I will apologize for that.
Muyo Bamdele reporting from Abuja.
In response to the incessant outbreaks of viral diseases in Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Health has concluded plans to make sure that each political ward in Nigeria has a primary healthcare center for prompt responses to outbreaks. The Honorable Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, who stated this during the Emergency Council of Health meeting aimed at proffering a lasting solution to the Lassa fever outbreak in Nigeria, stated that these health centers should be embraced by host communities for it to function effectively.
But in addition to the one in Fuka, we will add at least 109 other ones, one per senatorial district, as part of an assignment we have given ourselves in the first 3 months, while we roll out to 5,000 by December. Lessons learned from the initial 110 will guide us as we roll out to the other ones. We will also flag up a committee this afternoon to map the primary care service centers across the country. From our records, we have about 30,000. But we also know that less than 20% of the 30,000 are functional. Once we deactivate them, we want to hand them over to the community. And so we will put up a system of community ownership. Let the people consider it to be ours and not belonging to local government, state, or federal. It is ours, and that to me is what will sustain it. So we will need your support to make this work.
The minister, who condemned in strong terms the attitude of some states who refused to report cases of viral outbreaks so as to be termed safe states, gave advice on what Nigeria needs to do in order to overcome future occurrence.
But for us to really be honest with ourselves, all states should consider themselves at risk. And please put up measures to contain, prevent, and reassure the community that we are on top of the situation. It's public health education. High level of awareness. Good personal hygiene. And we let that flow into active case identification. And we can treat it when picked early.
With the current outbreak of Lassa fever in Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Health, led by Professor Isaac Adewale, which is the Federal Minister, has actually called an emergency Council of Health meeting to discuss and chart way forward for Nigeria as a country. You can see behind me, the Honorable Minister with stakeholders are putting heads together to make sure that justice is done to the case of Lassa fever in the country. From the city of Abuja, North Central Nigeria, I am Festus Ejiroga Nefifen for Ben Television.
Suites, number 1 AMO Road off Airport Road, GRA, Benin City, Edo State. Website www.prestigehotel.com.ng. Email info@prestigehotel.com.ng. Telephone number 070-620-84038, 081-519-74044. Prestige Hotel and Suites, world-class hospitality.
As the global oil crisis lingers, federal government has reiterated in its resolve to invest in alternative sources of revenue generation to help strengthen the nation's economy. Minister of Solid Minerals Kayode Fayemi, speaking at a formal handover of the research report by the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative (NITI) in Abuja, commended the management, stressing that the report will assist government in its policy formulation.
And we want to assure you that on our part, we would develop a much more clearly defined strategic engagement with NITI so that the information available to you can always be shared with our own team, and this can always inform what we do here in order to strengthen the solid mineral sector in our country. I want to thank you for the visit, and I want to reassure you that we would continue to work with NITI in order to strengthen this sector.
Earlier, the acting executive secretary NITI, Oji Obonayoji, who led the delegation, pointed out that every state of the federation has various mineral resources and must therefore be exploited as an alternative means of revenue generation in order to survive the harsh economic realities facing the oil sector.
And we're also aware, from working closely with this ministry over the years, we're also aware that this data is also available. Now, what we just came to do is to essentially draw attention on some of the issues we think may find a place in the ministry's, in the Honorable Minister's team's agenda, to be able to support this ministry internally, to be able to work with information and data that's already available, including the one we have just handed over. But to answer your question, there is mineral resources all over the country. If you go to our website, you see the spread all over the country.
Oji maintained that the solid mineral sector of the country is better positioned to strategically steer the ship of the nation to economic safety. From Abuja, LM Chukwameka reports.
The low level of export loans has no doubt contributed to a large extent to the decline in the non-oil exports revenue. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria, the country's non-oil exports dropped from $10.32 billion in 2014 to $4.39 billion in 2015. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, who disclosed this in Abuja at CBN Nexim Non-Oil Export Stimulation Conference, also said that credit to non-oil exports is currently on a decline accounting for 0.6% of total domestic loans to the private sector in the past 5 years. CBN Governor, who was represented by Director Development Finance Olaiton Mundashiru, noted that the impact of this development on the country's export growth potentials are quite significant and has become instructive for the stakeholders to dialogue towards evolving responsive strategies that can expand resources for export and its funding programs on a complementary basis.
It has been observed that while credit to non-oil exports is declining and currently at an average of 0.6% of total domestic loans to the private sector in the past 5 years, the domestic credit to the economy has been on the rise. The low level of export loans has no doubt also contributed to a large extent to the decline in non-oil export revenue receipts from $10.53 billion in 2014 to $4.39 billion in 2015. The impact of these developments on the country's export growth potentials are quite significant and has become instructive for the stakeholders to dialogue towards evolving responsive strategies that will expand resources for exports and its funding programs on a complementary basis.
The Managing Director, Nigeria Export-Import Bank, Robert Oya, asserted that Nigeria must find a way out of recurring problem posed by volatility in the international oil market, saying that the collapse of the global oil price provides the country the opportunity to diversify its economy.
While the current or the recent rebasing of the Nigerian economy has revealed that our production base has become much more diversified, with the services sectors accounting for about 52% of the gross domestic product in 2014, our revenue profile has remained skewed in the oil and gas sector, contributing over 70% and over 90% of government and export revenues, respectively. The consequences of this have been the slicker swing in our economic fortunes in response to the vagaries of the international oil market.
The Stimulation Conference is aimed at achieving the objectives of the strategies for growing non-oil exports. Osam Raffle, Ben Television.